Welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast, where empathy meets action in the world of leadership. Your host, Gino engages with innovators and seasoned professionals from diverse sectors, all demonstrating the power of leading with kindness. And now, your host, Gino
Hello, welcome to the Kind Leader Podcast. My name is Gino I'll be your host today, and today we have a great episode with Doug Keaton. Doug has served as an officer of the U.S. Army for over a decade and worked in several Fortune 500 organizations. He is the founder and chief learning officer at All the Way Leadership, which we'll get into here in a bit, and currently the VP of Business Development for an organization supporting the intelligence community. Doug, welcome to the show. Please share about yourself.
Thanks, Gino. Thanks for inviting me on the podcast. I'm a big fan. Looking forward to today's conversation. I think it's going to be a great show. Let me just flesh out my background a little bit more. As much as it pains me to say, I have over 3 decades of experience. The first decade of my career was in the U.S. Army, serving as an officer in tactical units like the 82nd Airborne Division. I was stationed overseas in Germany for over 4 years, and while there, I deployed multiple times to Bosnia. Given the current state of the world, I should probably mention my unit deployed to Ukraine back in the mid-90s to train with their army. My last assignment was as an Army ROTC instructor at the University of Virginia, my alma mater. And while there, I was lucky enough to complete my master's degree in IT, and that's what really launched me into the private sector. I worked for some great companies like Accenture, Booz Allen Hamilton, and Microsoft as a technology leader. Last thing, I appreciate you highlighting All the Way Leadership. It's a company I founded about 5 years ago, and I think it aligns really well with this podcast. I believe the world is in desperate need of more great leaders, women and men who lead with confidence, clarity, and creativity. It's my project to try and make the world a better place.
That's amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I mean, we've known each other for, I think, a couple of years now, and I just stumbled onto your all the Way Leadership, and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I need to bring him into this podcast to share a little bit more about that. So, what an amazing! Thank you for your service, amazing career. Congratulations on all your success. And same thing, right? One of the things that we're really trying to do with this podcast is to educate folks about leadership, but not just leadership, but also kind leadership in a way that is different than other organizations out there, or things that you're learning is leading with empathy. All right. You don't have to be mean. You don't have to be abrasive. You can be assertive. You can be influencer in a way that you're helping others grow and get to that mission, right? Get to those things that you want to accomplish. So far we have some great guests in this podcast, and including yourself. So we'll go ahead and dive in right into, we've got several topics to discuss. One of them is the discussion of empathy in leadership. You know, what does that mean to you? And give us some examples in your career with that.
Yeah, great topic. I think there's a lot of discussion about empathy and probably some misperceptions. To me, empathy is really the idea of putting yourself in someone else's shoes and seeing the world from their perspective. And when it comes to empathy and leadership, I think the question a leader should ask themselves is, what do the people I'm leading need from me to be successful? And the short answer is they need the same thing that you want in your leaders. I call it the 5 C's of leadership. It's similar to a model that I learned in the Army. Let me go through the 5 C's. 1's competency. You know how to lead. 2's confidence. You know what you're doing. You've got the right experience and expertise. 3, communication. You know how to clearly articulate your ideas and thoughts to others. 4 is creativity. You know how to craft strategy, develop plans, make decisions. And 5 is character. You're a good person, and to borrow your word, you're a kind leader. One of the things I love about this podcast is you're really focusing on number 5, which I think is absolutely important, because a leader without character is just not good for an organization.
Right. That's great. I love that 5 things. You have some examples of how you've incorporated some of those in your career, whether it's in Fortune 500 or even the military, that you'd love to share?
Yeah, I'll do a story from my military days. We're getting to get in the time machine and go back to the late 1990s. If you're going to lead with empathy, one of the things that really you need to do is make decisions that are good for the people you lead. The late 1990s, I'm a captain in the Army. I'm stationed in Germany, and I received the awesome news from my battalion commander that I've been selected for company command. For anybody that's not familiar with the Army, company command is a hugely important position, right? In order to really progress your career and professionally, you have to be successful in this role. So when you're selected, it's a big deal. In order to take command of the company, I returned to Bosnia. I served and supported the mission for several months. And then we received the awesome news, hey, it's time to redeploy to Germany. So I'm riding high. Things are going well. We're going home. My best platoon leader approaches me a few days later and says, hey, I've been selected for a new role. Because of that, I'm going to need to leave early. I can't redeploy with the company. And the battalion commander wants to know if you concur with her decision. So that's when things get real.
Right.
I've got a decision to make. On the one hand, I can say, yes, go ahead, leave early. We'll redeploy without you. Best wishes on the rest of your career. On the other hand, I can say, no, let's think about Doug's career for a second. This is my most important role. Right. I need to be successful. You're my star player. How about you just hang out? We'll redeploy together. It'll be great. And then you go to your next role. Right? To me, though, holding someone back for your own good, it's a bad choice. So in this case, I said, congratulations, sent him back to Germany. He went on to do awesome things for the battalion. And then the question is, how did the redeployment went? It went great.
Right.
Other people filled in, and I was worried about something ultimately and would have made a bad choice. And quite honestly, could have held someone back. Why would you do that when you have the opportunity to let them go on and prosper?
Right. That's great. That's a great example. And one of the things that popped up as you were talking is sometimes we make decisions that seem to be selfish, but at the same time is based out of fear. Right? Like you were saying, like, oh man, I can't do it without him, or what am I going to do? Am I really going to be able to deploy successfully without my star player? And what you did was amazing. It's like, let's think for the rise together. This person has a great opportunity somewhere else. Let him shine. And people, you'd be surprised. People step up, right? From those decisions, you start seeing other people's and give them the opportunity. So it's taking a step back and looking at the big picture. Sometimes it's what's required when making those tough decisions and when you're leading with that empathy and understanding that. So great story there. Appreciate that. Coming back to the 5 C's, I really like this. I might start really looking into how we incorporate it in the organization. We have 5 core values in our companies. They're not necessarily close enough, but the character that you said is kind leadership is one of our core values in the organization. The other one is bringing value. And when I say bring value to our folks, is about not just checking the box, but how can you bring creativity into everything you do so you can make it better at the end of the day? So just wanted to highlight on those things. And I'll put it in our show notes here to make sure people understand it, because I really, really like what you said there. So anything to add on that? Or
Yeah, let's talk about values for a second. Yeah. 2 values I hold dear are integrity and trust. I've actually done a fair amount of thinking about this. And in fact, for All the Way Leadership, I created a concept I call integrated individual integrity. Right? And this is a way for leaders to think about integrity and trust. This framework addresses 3 hard truths I think leaders face when it comes to their integrity. 1, the team members are going to pay special attention to the individual integrity of the leader. It just is the way it is. You're in charge and people are watching you. 2 is the team members are going to track who the leader is, what the leader says, and what the leader does. And in the back of their mind, the question they're asking themselves is, can I trust this leader? And 3 is, if those attributes, who you are, what you say, and what you do, don't align, they're not going to trust you.
Right.
And trust is vital for a leader. In my opinion, without it, you're just dead in the water. So let me give kind of a silly example to prove the point as far as what I'm talking about. It's early 2024. I say to myself, hey, I'm going to get in the best shape of my life this year, right? I get a gym membership. I go all in. I'm getting a personal trainer. I drive to the gym. I'm excited. I'm ready. Got my gear on, ready to go. I meet my personal trainer, the person who's going to lead me to the promised land.
Yeah.
He's at least 50 pounds overweight.
Wow.
Eating a donut and drinking a Big Gulp.
Oh, man.
And he looks at me and says, we're going to get you in the best shape of your life. Right? What are the thoughts that are running through my head? Are you kidding me?
Right.
This is the person who's going to lead me?
Right.
They can't even lead themselves.
Right.
So why would I follow this person? That's a great example of who you are doesn't match what you do.
Right.
And if that's the case, you find yourself in, like, you got to do something about it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people are going to be like, I don't know why I would follow this person. They clearly don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. Trust is key, right? And a lot of things that you do, but especially in the leadership role, people listen. People, whenever you're saying something, they're going to listen. You commit to something, you better follow through, because people remember, right? And I know there's CEOs or directors, executives or VPs, right? You know, people are looking up to you. So as you're leading with kindness and you're leading all that stuff, making sure that you do what you say. Like you said, I love the philosophical framework that you have there. And definitely, I'm learning a lot, Doug. I really like what you have.
Well, let's give another example that might resonate more with people. Let's say you work for that boss and it's all about things need to be on time. Meetings start on time, they end on time. Everybody's in the office on time, stays till the end. Everybody's timesheets go on time. It's punctuality. Let's say this leader then starts showing up late to their own meetings. Comes in late on Monday, leaves early on Fridays. People are going to be like, what is up with Doug? He says one thing and does another. Right? And they're not going to trust that leader. Right? It's a small example, but it's people are going to wonder. They say one thing and do another. And I think we've all sat and watched that and been like, I don't know what to do in this situation. It's really hard to tell, like, what's really going on.
Right. Absolutely. A great story there. The other thing I want to add to that is energy too. Like we're all high energy. I mean, we all have good days and bad days, right? But as leaders out there, and you don't have to have high positions. It's just, you can be a leader at anything that you do, right? But it's bring that right energy into whatever it is that you're doing, because people can feel that. People can feel when you're low energy and it's like, oh, what's going on with this person? Or, you know what I mean? So I'm bringing that up just because people follow. And if you have that negativity, that negative energy, people are going to be cautious about the true leadership that you have, you know, that you bring to the table. So anyways, let's change a little bit on more resilience in leadership. You know, we talked about the different stories that you have. Tell us about how leaders can build and demonstrate resilience in the face of adversity.
Yeah, great question. I know you're a big fan of the growth mindset, which I am too, having worked at Microsoft. It's a core tenet of Satya's leadership approach. And I think it helps explain one of the reasons he's one of the best CEOs in the world right now. I think you have to cultivate the idea of growth mindset or resiliency into your culture. 3 ideas on how to do that. One really is to be the example. And in this case, it's really, you know, being able to deal with adversity so that people know what it looks like. 2 thoughts as far as how to do that. One is just to talk about it as a team. I'm a big fan of having a team mantra, so to speak. One team I was on, our mantra was, we do hard, right? We were standing up a new program and we guessed, hey, things are going to be hard.
Right.
And we were right. Something's really, really hard. And this mantra just helped keep us motivated and keep moving forward. Because if you expect things to be hard when they're not, you're just so happy that they're not. And it's a glorious day. And the other is, especially as a leader, keep your cool. Right? You set the temperature in the room. And when you experience setbacks, don't lose your cool. Right? I mean, that point is hard because when you're a leader, you're dealing with the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's just the reality of what you face. And when ugly shows up, you're going to want to scream and shout, pound the table. I have felt that. I get it. I'm here to say, don't do it.
Right.
It's not going to make things better.
Right.
If anything, word's going to get out that you lost it.
Right.
And then you're going to probably be doing repair down the road when instead take a step back, take a deep breath, whatever you got to do to calm yourself, deal with the situation, and then move on.
Nice. Yeah, that was a big one. I've been in meetings with customers a while back outside of this company where I've experienced a leader just slam on the desk at one point, and it was like 10 people in the room. I was just getting started, I think, in my career, and I saw that. And this guy was, you know, when I met him, super nice guy and stuff like that, but something didn't go right. And he felt the need to slam on the table, and I saw everybody's face and energy in that room that day, afraid. The fear. What you are doing there now is you're not allowing your peers or people reporting to you to be authentic, to be genuine, to speak their truth about what's going on, and it retracts the mission of your organization. Because now everybody's like, no, we can't make this person upset, this leader upset. Right?
Yeah, that's a great example. I think if there's a common thing that a lot of leaders say is, I've got an open door policy, I'm approachable, come tell me anything.
Right.
what you just described is, if you bring me something and I go off the rails, you better believe people are not lining up at your door, right? They're going to go elsewhere because they're like, why would I go tell the boss bad news?
Right.
If they're just going to lose it, perhaps even yell and scream at me, no,
Right.
I'll just sit here and watch.
Yeah, that's a big one. And, we all get upset, right? We all get disappointed or angry or whatever, but it's how we can harness that energy. And one of the things that I do in the company, meditation. I don't know what your beliefs are in meditation or if you practice it, but it's one of those things that it really brings you and calms you down, right? Even just doesn't have to be like a true sit down, cross your legs, and do that. It's just as simple as just close your eyes, breathe in for 10 seconds, right? Breathe in, breathe out for 10 seconds. And that you'd be surprised how you are focusing in the present. Because I don't know if you ever heard, anxiety, depression, or even angry, other emotions are in the future or in the past. Our minds are like you're getting angry about something that happened and you're reliving it, and that's part kind of depression or angry. And then you're trying to figure out the future. That's where anxiety comes through. But if you take a minute and just breathe, relax, even for as little as 10 seconds, you are brought into the now, where you can then appreciate, be grateful for what you have, where you are. And that gratitude energy can cut through anything, right?
Yeah, I like that a lot. The thought I had as far as when you're a leader, you're going to deal with difficult times and crisis, and to think about how you're going to handle it beforehand. So let me just share 3 quick thoughts on that one. And the first, and this may be the most important thing I say on the podcast, right? Always treat everybody with dignity and respect.
Absolutely.
Right, especially during difficult times and crises. Yeah. There's no reason to ever demean a human being in the workplace. Mm-hmm. It's just not acceptable. 2, and I'll say it again, which is, and you described this nicely, which is keep your cool.
Yeah.
Right. In my case, going for a walk is super helpful. Getting outside, clearing my mind, especially if I have time on my calendar. Right. And the 3rd is learn how to handle crucial conversations. Mm-hmm. Right. Read a book, take a class, and prepare beforehand. A lot of times as a leader, a crucial conversation's coming. And the more senior you are as a leader, the more important this becomes, because you're going to face these situations. Right. You want to be at your best when it matters the most. And I am surprised how many leaders I've worked with who do not prepare properly for a crucial conversation. They wing it, and it hardly goes well. Kind leaders, I think, handle the difficult and crisis situations well.
Right.
And I'll borrow your term, mean leaders don't. Right. All right. If anything, they get meaner. Yeah. Which just makes everybody miserable. And nobody wants to be in that kind of scenario.
Yeah. The thing is, they don't care. That's the thing, right? They really don't care. The selfishness, comes into like, just deal with it, move on, right? That's unfortunately the attitude, right? Compared to like, all right, this person, you don't know what this person is going through. You don't know what their personal lives could be affected, right? I was telling my kid the other day, somebody cut us off, and usually what people do is like, and I told him, like, this is a perfect example. And he's like, why didn't you get upset? He just cut you off and you didn't do anything. Like, you didn't say anything. You didn't get angry. And I was like, because I don't know what's happening. This person could be driving to an emergency room because their kid, their wife, you don't know what's going on. Those are the decisions that they're making. We don't know what other people are thinking or experiencing or that, right? So it's our job as leaders, right? Mm-hmm. From my perspective, is to understand if somebody's not feeling good or you're feeling like a different energy or different things that are happening. Going back to what you're saying, prepare. Don't just jump in. It's like, hey, what's going on? But it's like, find out, right? Gather some information, get ready to have either the tough conversation or be there just to even listen. You don't have to solve a problem, but just to listen makes an impact in people's lives. Yeah,
I like the idea you raised as far as you have no idea what's going on with people. As far as technique, when you're going to have a crucial conversation, I think it's good to ask a question to gauge where the person is. I was a program manager. I ran a large program, and at times I would meet with one-on-one, and they thought it was a regular meeting. Right. And usually when you're meeting with the boss of a large program, it's not to be praised. We're going to do that in public. We're about to have a crucial conversation. Right. So I'd ask kind of a sensing question of like, hey, how do you think it's going?
Right.
And if they're like, oh, everything's awesome, right? I'm killing it. You may need to give them a verbal cue of this is not a normal conversation.
Right.
So in this case, you might say, listen, this may come as a shock to you, but we need to have a serious discussion about whatever it's going to be.
Right.
So cue them in of, hey, you need to focus. We're about to have a hard conversation.
Right.
And if you're properly prepared, you can take them through that conversation. Because to your point, sometimes there may be an emotional response.
Right.
And you don't want to respond with more emotion. That's going to take you nowhere that you want to go.
Exactly.
So think through what that looks like. And as the leader, like I said, you set the temperature and be the guiding hand that says, hey, we're going to talk about this. One of the things I was going to mention is I love the fact that you named this the kind leader, not the nice leader.
Right.
Well, I think there's some misconception about kind leadership. Some people think it's like, oh, you got to be nice to everybody. It's very emotive and vulnerability and soft.
Right.
Which that just sounds awful when I said it.
Right.
And I don't think that's it. The thing I'll say, I've served in the Army with units with tough leaders, Army Rangers, Special Forces, those kind of folks.
Right.
And they were kind leaders, right? I think some people think like, oh, when you're in that kind of situation, everybody's yelling and screaming at each other and to get things done. In certain scenarios, maybe, but in general, the toughest people I knew were actually very kind leaders, right? And that was part of the deal.
Yeah.
That I learned as a very young leader, and it was super helpful as far as thinking through what kind of leader do I want to be. And let me just circle back to you raised energy, and I think this is hugely important, right? And let's contrast a kind leader with a mean leader,
right?
Because I think kind leaders have a positive impact on culture and engagement.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Kind leaders to me bring positive energy. If you're in a meeting or on a call, when a kind leader shows up, the energy level goes up. People are like, I'm glad I'm here.
Yep.
Right. Now think about when a mean leader joins the call or walks into the room. Silence. Everybody's thinking, what can I do to drop from this call or get out of this meeting as fast as possible? Mean leaders, they bring negative energy and nobody wants to be around it.
Yeah.
And you know what those followers are doing in the meantime? They're sitting around waiting for that mean leader to retire or move on, so that they can get into a better work environment.
Yeah, you nailed it there, Doug. I mean, that's exactly right. And I like the simplicity, almost like kind leaders bring positive energy into everything that they do, right? And elevate and rise people together, right, to that same energy. And mean leaders are taking away, right? Taking away the energy and putting more fear into people's, mind. Like you said, when is this meeting going to? Maybe I'm not going to say anything, so they don't call on me and start picking on me, and So absolutely right. I mean, that's a great contrast as it relates to what it means, and it's not about being nice, like you said, right? It's really kindness in marrying that kind leadership, right? In being assertive, but also caring, being empathy, right? In order to impact and deliver value at the end of the day. That's what I'm thinking. So great story. I want to dive into going into mentorship and its role in developing kind leaders. I would love to learn more about where you got your idea about all the way leadership. Tell us more about that. You mentioned certain things and tips, and which are amazing, by the way, and definitely will include it in the show notes. But tell us more about that, please.
Yeah, I started all the way leadership about 5 years ago, and really it's for two reasons. One, I think a lot of organizations, when it comes to young leaders, they just simply don't have the resources to invest in them. Right. I was lucky enough. I started as an Army officer. You get months of training before you're put in front of anybody to lead them. Right. In corporate America, you can't afford to do that. Right. So I think there's somewhat of a void as far as, especially for young people who want to learn about leadership, how do you start and where do you learn the fundamentals? The second is I noticed that some of my peers had really bad habits as far as really basic leadership things we talked about. Right. And when I thought about it, what really struck me is they must have learned that somewhere along the way. I don't think most people are mean by nature. Right. They've been taught the old school Jack Welch management approach to the world. Which probably had its place in its day. And now I don't think it's the right way to lead. So I thought, okay, I was lucky enough. My first assignment in the Army was in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I was surrounded by phenomenal leaders.
That's awesome.
Right. That to me, the best way to learn is just to be around great leaders and just take notes of what are they doing that makes them so effective. And on the flip side, if you're ever around a bad leader, take notes as well, as far as here's the things I shouldn't do.
Yep.
So I felt like I had a contribution to make, and that's why I started it. The other thing, when I was at Booz Allen Hamilton, I was lucky enough to support the summer intern program. And it's a great program, really phenomenal. And spending time with aspiring college students every summer reminded me that younger generations don't think like I do. I mean, it's a reality check, quite honestly. It was good for me because they also would ask these kind of questions. Hey, how do I become a leader? And I'll say the same thing here that I used to tell them, 3 things to think about as far as if you want to be an aspiring leader. One is master your craft. Start studying leadership before you're put in a leadership role. Especially nowadays, there's a ton of resources. I mean, like your podcasts that are available for people that are interested in this topic. Right. I think you can really set yourself apart as a young leader if you've already studied the art of leadership and you kind of have a working knowledge of it. 2 is become the best version of you. Especially when you're in college, really focus on what are you all about? What's your personality? What are you good at? What are you bad at? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? I believe the most challenging person to lead is yourself at the end of the day. And after all, why should anybody follow you if you can't lead yourself effectively? Exactly. Right? So be the best version of you. And then 3, I mean, the biggest thing you lack when you're a new leader or a young leader is experience. So go get experience. Right. Get a broad set of experiences as quickly as possible and find a mentor to help show you the way. Yeah. Right. I think those 3 things alone can get you on your journey. You know, I'm passionate about the subject, obviously. I've been a lifetime learner as far as leadership. Yeah. And I encourage young people to do the same. You know, don't wait till you're like, hey, now you're in charge. And then that's the first time you start thinking about, what do I do?
Right. I love the second one. And I live by this. And when I talk to also college students is because they don't know what they don't know, right? They don't know what the world is. Every year is different, right? The culture changes, you know, technology and different things, right? But I love what you said. The second one is know yourself. Like you truly need to know yourself in a way that what's your passion? What drives you? What are you, I have 3 kids and all 3 of them have different things, different wants, different needs, right? I can't parent the same way to all of them, right? My oldest is into music. He loves music and, I can connect with him from a music perspective and continue to build that craft as you're saying, right? My middle guy is more of a easygoing, really likes computers and games. And I connect with, now he's lifting weights, so I can connect with him in getting fit and all that stuff, right? But I always tell him, like, be true to yourself and find out what you want. And then my youngest one, which I call him Mini-Me, he's an entrepreneur at 11 years old already.
Oh, wow.
He's doing some amazing things, so creative and such a great negotiator at 11 years old that I'm already connecting with him from just the business and technology. He sits there and watches how to build games on VR, for example, right? And I bring those up, especially when you're talking about knowing yourself, because that's important. As you folks out there listening, it's like, what do you really want? You're here in this world, experiencing this world. Enjoy every minute. Do the things that are going to make you happy. Do the things that are going to impact people, right? And you're going to, bring value. And I understand there's certain situations where people are in environments that they may not be able to. Pause and learn, right? Sometimes easier said than done, but you're in the weeds, you're doing the things and you feel like the world is happening to me. And that's a big misconception. The world's not happening to you. The world is happening for you. You get the difference there? It's not happening to you, but it's happening for you to experience it, for you to be passionate about and do the things that make you happy. So I really like those 3 things. So I appreciate the coming back to ATW. Mm-hmm. How can people learn more about that? Is there like just a site membership, or how can they really benefit from, because you have doing this for 5 years, just listening for the last 30 minutes. I mean, I'm taking notes, doing a lot of great things. So I would love for people out there that are listening to kind of join and see if they can learn from you.
Yeah, great question. And just so it's clear that this is my side gig. This is not what I do all day.
For sure.
Maybe one day, but not today. Three things, right? I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep.
As far as I have a site, usually try and publish a blog at least once a month. For example, recently I've been writing about leading in a post-pandemic world. I think some significant changes happened. So I'm talking about, what changes I think leaders should consider now that we're in the post-pandemic world. Two, I have the blog itself. It could probably be more organized than it is. It's a side gig though.
Hey.
So there's a lot of resources there. And then three, for companies that are interested, if I have time available, I do consult. I work with some companies on some of the topics we've talked about, figuring out who you are, how to communicate effectively, and the kind of skills that leaders really need to harness. Right now, I'm working with one company. We're talking about the fact that in the post-pandemic world, the hybrid is really the norm as far as not everybody's going to be in the room. Maybe some people are going to be on. The technology is great, but it's a different way of leading a meeting, showing up, things of that nature. So we're having a discussion around what that looks like, some best practices, everything from as much as how to show up well on camera to also how do you lead a virtual meeting so that it doesn't descend into chaos. Because my guess is we've all been in a meeting where you're 10 minutes in and you're like, wow, this is a circus.
Yeah. And it's funny when you're talking about, I really like and appreciate you sharing with the folks how three things that can get to you. But what popped up to me is like, you assume those things, like people know that, right? But they don't. They've learned it from different habits or bad habits. So why not make the investment or have the intention to really focus on building the future leaders, right? And I'm talking for other business owners or leaders out there that may want to learn. I know this is your side gig, but it sounds like there might be other opportunities out there to invest in training. Like we started earlier today, you were saying like we don't really train. I mean, the Army, they months and months in training, right? Some Fortune 500 organizations do take maybe weeks in that, but smaller organizations, they can't afford it. But if you can't afford to train, then you're going to feel the pain on the lack of consistency, the lack of how people are delivering services or products, whatever, for your organization if they don't know what they don't know. So, right.
100% agree.
All right, so that's all the things, and you actually answered my question of offering guidance to aspiring kind leaders out there on those three things, which leads me into one of the closing questions: is if you could have coffee with anyone, alive or from the past, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I love this kind of question, and it's timely. We just celebrated his life. Martin Luther King Jr. to me is probably one of the best leaders our country's ever produced. If you think about the impact he had, given the circumstances he had to operate in as a leader, phenomenal, right? He's an African-American male in the segregated South. His task is to really turn the conversation into a better direction for civil rights. Yeah. Within his lifetime, I mean, he really advances the cause tremendously. I'd love to have coffee with him. His life was cut short just to hear what do we do now, right? The vision he cast, we still have yet to achieve. I feel like we're getting towards it. But when I think about him, it's Black History Month as well. He's just one of my heroes as far as someone who has really volunteered for an enormous task and was really successful in advancing towards that. I'm so glad that we celebrate him in a meaningful way these days.
That's amazing. And yeah, I would love to be part of that coffee as well. I mean, that's quite the feat. I mean, and his life got cut short, but the way he delivered and made an impact in his messages and cut through all that stuff, right? Doesn't matter. And people were listening. So he made a huge impact. And one of the things I like to tell people is you hear about making an impact, but generational impact is what we would love to do, right? And that's what he did, and many other leaders out there as well, right? And hopefully as we educate and create leaders, we're creating that generational impact for future leaders in this world. So thank you, Doug. I think you already shared where people can contact you, right? Through LinkedIn. And any final thoughts before we close it out?
Let's finish with a real tactical tip.
Okay.
Right. Sometimes young leaders say, I don't know what to say to my team. Right. I stand up, they're all looking at me. I get all nervous, but you should.
Right.
Like, what do I say? And I always say, listen, the best thing you can do is thank people for showing up, working hard, and doing their best. No one's going to go home and be like, I can't believe Doug thanked me for working hard today. Right. Just start with that. Say, I appreciate the work that you do, what we've accomplished together. There's more work to be done, but thanks for showing up and doing your best. Yeah. And with that thought in mind, I definitely want to thank you for inviting me on the podcast. I appreciate the conversation. You can tell I'm passionate about this topic for sure, but love what you're doing with Kind of Leadership. Hopefully it gets more and more traction.
Absolutely. Now, this was, thank you. You're welcome, but thank you for participating, and what an amazing educational podcast. I mean, there was a lot of great nuggets of really, really good information there for our listeners out there. So thank you for that. And I'm pretty sure we'll ask you to come back sometime in the near future as well. So for all the listeners out there, thank you for continuing your support, and I look forward to the next one. So be kind, bring value, rise together. Take care.